Hi, I'm Gianluca Fiorelli, and today we are going to have a good friend of mine, an Italian like me, one of those not so well known to the community around the world, but already deserve to be known because of his knowledge, his skill, and his insight, and his experience too. This person is recently become moved to the consultancy profession after many years as owner and the founder of a very famous Italian agency, SEO agency called Find. And now he's an e-business and e-commerce advisor for P2C company and DTC brands. This person is Marco Loguercio. Hi, Marco. How are you doing?
Gianluca, I'm fine, and thank you for having me in your podcast.
You're welcome. The pleasure is totally mine. Let's try to start also with you with a classic question what I do for breaking the ice. How SEO is treating you lately?
Well, believe it or not, I started doing SEO 30 years ago. 1996 I was a journalist at that time, and I discovered the web, so I started creating the first website and being able to write very well. I didn't have any kind of problem in writing content for those websites. And at that time, I was also a sort of data freak. So using the first log file analyzers, I discovered that several visits were coming from search engine. I've always been a curious person. So I started trying to understand how to let search engines. It was the era before Google, the SEO before Google. I started to try to understand how to optimize the website I was creating to get visibility and to get visits. So after 30 years, I admit I was starting to get a little bit bored when ChatGPT came. And so it was like having a new input, having a new motivation. So when ChatGPT started being used also as a search engine, and without any kind of information about how people use it, the kind of prompt people are writing, how many people are really using it in Italy and worldwide. So I decided to focus my attention with my observatory because you say in 2004, when I started my first agency, at that time, all the information related to how people were using search engines were coming from the US. So Italy was a completely different country. And in 2004, I decided to create my own observatory in order to get first-hand information. And since then, every year, every 3 to 6 months, I repeat this kind of analysis. So I monitor how Italians use search engines, specifically before buying products. Since 2004, I started monitoring also the evolution of the way people search, if they are typing questions, if they are using voice, if they are using pictures. So when ChatGPT comes as a search engine and being also using Copilot and Perplexity started being used also in Italy, I decided to focus my attention on one thing, trying to figure out how to measure, how to give an answer to the question, okay, but how is ChatGPT really used in Italy when persons are in purchase mode? How is it influential? And because those LLMs are the new gatekeeper of the narrative of both the brand and the products, how could ChatGPT or in Italy it's not at the moment present AI mode or Perplexity? How are they are presenting my brand? How they are presenting my product? Are they guiding people toward my website in order to help them to buy my products? Or on the other side, are they moving those people away and convincing them to buy elsewhere? So that's why after 30 years, I started a new feeling, a new vibes when we talk about SEO and search in general.
Yes, I think this is a sensation that many of us had because, I mean, SEO was somehow commoditized
Of
in
course.
terms of best practices. Even if we had the classic scary moment whenever Google was rolling out an update. I don't know you, but personally, I was feeling okay, it's another update, and let's see what is going to be, etc., etc., etc. But really not feeling that enthusiasm anymore, depending really on the project. But with the arrival of LLMs, yes, a new thing is coming. I feel as a student again, and so let's see how things are changing and how we can take advantage of it and make our clients take advantage of it.
Also, because if I can add something, you say SEO is commoditized, and it's reality, because I've had some prospect telling me, okay, why should invest in your company? Why should invest in your SEO services when you can do it with ChatGPT? And well, when I got this answer, I was impressed, because uh, our managers really believing that a tool can optimize your website, a tool can analyze the way people engage with your website, the way people are, the kind of information they need in order to decide and to buy the product. You really believe that one tool can do all this kind of stuff. So the question was, how can we demonstrate our value? Because you also say SEO started being commoditized and a sort of checklist of things to do. And I've never been convinced that SEO is this kind of thing, because when you work, for instance, for an e-commerce website, when the e-commerce players are adding new products or adding new services, you have to work on those products pages, on those category pages, in order to improve the performance, in order to increase visibility, increase visits, increase conversion. So it's not a set it and forget it project like many people believe. It's a challenge, and it was really, I was enthusiastic when I had to demonstrate those people that no, ChatGPT was not the answer. ChatGPT is a tool we can use to do more things, to be empowered, but not being an SEO.
Yeah, totally right, totally right. And an outcome of this curiosity of yours is a wonderful, wonderful report you have created, and hopefully soon, as you told me before we started this conversation, is going to also be presented in English version. It's the, let me call, cited with the correct name, the Omnichannel Search in Italy 2025. And yes, it's in Italy, but in Italy, obviously, as every country has its own peculiarities. But I think that this report is presenting interesting insights that can resonate also for many other markets. And especially are the hidden problems and the potential solution that you present in the PDF, in the study, that can be common to every market. And when it comes to this study, first of all, I know why you decided to call it the omni-channel and not something the LLM use of in Italy 2025, or how Italians are using ChatGPT or AI search in Italy 2025, but omni-channel. Would you like to explain it why the word omni-channel and not other words?
Because I wanted to focus the attention on the fact that search is not only Google centric. Because, it's easier for our industry to say, okay, we have to focus on Google. 99% of SEO projects are mainly focused on Google, because, Google means search, and search means Google, or at least for the most part of us. Because if you ask my daughter, 18-year-olds, or my younger kids, 6-year-olds, they search using TikToks, they search using YouTube, they barely know the word Google. But why omnichannel? Because there is a detail that that only in the last few years people started considering. People are searching on TikTok, as I said, people are searching on YouTube, people are searching on Instagram, but that's not new. Going back to 2016, for instance, in my study at that time, I started showing the people that people were using also other search properties within social networks, within entertainment platform, because they want to get different kind of information when they're searching for a product, when they're searching for a service, or when they're searching for an information. In Italy, people, when in buying mode, they use at least 3 search properties. They can be Google start, they can be then TikTok or YouTube, then it can be Amazon, because Amazon is also in Italy the product that the most important product search engine in Italy. If you talk about younger people in the beauty industry, for instance, under 24, the most important search platform is TikTok. I don't remember exactly, for 40 or 45% of those young people, Google is not within the three most important search properties, fourth or fifth. So we are talking about a new generation that doesn't rely on Google for searches. And also with the advent of generative search engines, they are not cannibalizing other search properties. I know, for instance, from our survey that 55% of the Italian that use ChatGPT for as a search engine, they also use Google. They start searching on Google, then move to ChatGPT to dig deeper, or they start with ChatGPT and then move to Google in order to get confirmation or more information or where to buy. So it's a synergy. It's not one killing the other, like the press say. Italians are using several search engines because they right now know how to use them. They know which tools to use to get the exact kind of information they need.
Yes, I think that people is with the past over here got more educated than many marketers thinks when it comes to search.
Exactly.
And I mean, your data is also substantially confirming and very similar to the data that also Rand Fishing shared a few months ago, saying that how the 80, let's say the big majority of people using Google is also using ChatGPT, and
Sure.
only a very tiny percentage is not using or Google or ChatGPT. And obviously, if we are going to have a classic chart with the circles, we would see a lot of overlapping between Google and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest, which is somehow a
Sure.
neglected social media, but it's so important now, I think, for how visual is becoming product hunting. And now, obviously, ChatGPT. Perplexity, I think, less. I think we are going to a situation where, as in classic search engine, the name is Google. In LLMs, the name is ChatGPT. Even if, okay, in some markets, we have to consider also Bing, but it doesn't seem that the collaboration between Bing and OpenAI really helped Bing in growing in terms of market share. One of the things that you talk about is more than change, evolution of a consumer behavior online. And there is one concept that I really found interesting, and this is the concept of search fatigue. So
Mhm.
searching is taking time. Maybe because someone is starting on ChatGPT and asking a suggestion from ChatGPT, and then go to, no, let's say start with TikTok and see some products that are being shared by some influencer they are following, or some peers that they are following, and then go to Google to see more about this, and then go to ChatGPT. It's taking time, it's
Of course.
taking energy to do this kind of research. And you were saying search fatigue is more than the literal term of fatigue, is how the buying section, let's call it so, is getting longer. And you were saying with a 30% increase in time from discovery to purchase. What would you really, with a quick insight, with a quick idea, you would suggest, for instance, to a client, a B2B e-commerce client of yours? Okay, this is what's happening. How can we maintain the attention of these potential customers on our brand and not lose them in this enhanced and larger time before conversion?
Well, when I meet the entrepreneurs or managers of brands or retailers, I used to say, and maybe they would like to kill me, that this search fatigue is because of the companies. Because 90% of companies I used to work with, they believe that producing content text, images, videos. It's a cost. It's not an investment. The problem is that and of course, they also believe that the information they put in the product page, in the category page, it's enough. The problem is they produce this content according to what they believe are the information people need. The problem is, when you see the other side, is that people need much more information that entrepreneurs or managers believe and understand, because they want to compare, they want to evaluate, they want to try if possible, they want to look at the nearest reseller in order to see the product, to buy the product, and then they go online to search for reviews, to search for comparison. If companies don't produce the content that's useful to satisfy this kind of needs, those questions, well, people have to look elsewhere. And if they look elsewhere, maybe they land to a competitive website, to a competitor, and then buy competitive products. So you lose the sale. And also the problem is that people would have to search elsewhere this information. They don't know if, and this is the why of the fatigue, they don't know if the information they find is really believable, it's actual, it's trustful. So they start thinking, okay, the next search will be the right one. So they start to search. You're familiar with the messy middle. The messy middle is exactly this. People don't trust the information they find, so they start searching once again, because they believe they don't have enough information. So it's funny, because if you think that when 30 years ago the first search engines started appearing, their mission was to make easier for people to get the right information, to get things done, like Alex Schmidt used to say when he was the chief executive officer at Google. So right now, okay, too many useless information, and that's going worse and worse because of AI. So we have content factories that are producing spam, and I don't like the way the industry is going. And so the fatigue is because companies don't want to understand their consumers. They don't produce the content that the consumer really needs in order to evaluate and to decide.
Yes, and it's fun because they should just look, for instance, I'm thinking of the brands that are present both online with their e-commerce, but also with their shop in the physical stores. They should just, maybe a good idea would be to, okay, what are the store where you are having the biggest conversion? The store, and let's link it to the quality of the clerks, of the people working in your store. Are the person working in your store that are converting the ones that are always closer to the potential customer, suggesting them what to buy, answering to their question about the products or not? Because maybe sometimes there is a sort of misunderstanding, I think, from a commerce brand that for selling you just need to be cool, to inspire, to be inspirational, when actually the attention is taken from inspirational content. But then, for instance, my wife, if she wants to buy a skirt, the first question that she asks to herself is, this skirt is going to fit well on my body.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of creating 2,000 posts about how cool is this skirt, because so you can go to a rooftop in Rome in late summer, having a drink, dress like a star, create me, please, a tool where I can virtually have my skirt on me, so I can see it if it's the right one for me to buy. And it's strange because Google understands this better, and Google Shopping is already offering this kind of tools. And just very few brands, e-commerce brands, are offering in the fashion industry, for instance. Or yes, you talked about in the past, many years ago, you worked with Luxottica, and Luxottica is offering this kind of virtual tool. But it's more an exception than the normality. When you are talking about, yes, we were talking about content and how much useless content is produced instead of really useful content so that people goes to other places to find what they really want to know about a product. You were stressing out a lot about visual content. This is obvious because we know, as we said before, how much TikTok is influencing search and customer behavior. And Instagram is another one. But also on Google, we see the presence of image, the presence of video, of shorts. Now there are people spotting in AI mode the presence of shorts. And so visual content is not new, it's important, but it seems always that is somehow put in a second level. Just living on YouTube, just living as co-marketing with influencer, but not on the website. What do you think?
Well, back again to what entrepreneurs and managers think, content is always a cost and not an investment. And in my opinion, you have to orchestrate the content you produce because uh, I I forgot to mention that in 2013, after leaving my first company, I also co-founded a DTC brand, cycling apparel brand. And one of the discussions I had with the founder, chief executive officer at the time of the company, was about the importance of images and videos because trying to differentiate really I had to say that at the time we were an Italian company, but we were targeting the US and UK, so we're not a classic Italian e-commerce targeting Italy because it's easier. We were focusing the world, we were targeting the world, and because of that, details were extremely important, and content, images and videos were extremely important because if you run a brand that no one knows, that no one has seen, you need high quality picture. You need picture that had to let those people dream about your product and the way they could use your product. So back to your question, they have to orchestrate the way they use content. For instance, you can put product focused images on the landing on your product page, then link to your Instagram profile for in action pictures
Yeah,
or
lifestyle.
lifestyle pictures or other kind of pictures depending on the business you're talking about because you cannot put everything into a product page. You cannot put 20 videos or 2,000 images on a single page, but you have to help people find the kind of information they need, the kind of images they need at that time, in order to let them figure out how to use your product, how your product could be in your hands, how you could look like wearing the product, and so on. So to go to conclusion, you back to what I said earlier. You have to study what your customer need in order also to create the right images and the right videos. When we back to the company I co-founded, I remember I spent a lot of night in forums and communities, cycling communities, in order to find out two things: the location they were dreaming of riding the bicycle and the kind of bicycle they would like to ride. So when we had to go for shootings, we used the bikes people were dreaming, and as a location, the location they were dreaming of riding those bikes. So we connected all those details in order to create the perfect shooting, and that's helped us to make the difference. In 5 or 6 years, we became the fourth or fifth brand in the direct-to-consumer cycling brand in the US, the third in UK, behind Rafa, behind most well-founded brands. So it was because we worked also on this kind of details. So that's why I believe that images, you have to orchestrate the images and videos in order to help people find those information, find those images, and believe in this kind of images in order to be sure the product they want to buy is the right one.
Yes, and this make me have a thought, a reflection, which is somehow a consequence, something that is common to both SEOs, practitioner, and brands. When we talk about audience and market analysis, it's something that must fund all the strategies in every field of marketing. We always say, okay, we must talk with the customer care, we must understand what is the social chatting about our brands, our products, etc., etc., etc. We always see this kind of recommendation written, but Then what I experience is that, yes, maybe the brand, maybe the in-house SEO did it, but then put it into an archive and totally forgot about it. Because, for instance, now that Reddit is so,
Yes.
it's a couple of years that is ruling the web and is considered so important to at least monitor Reddit. But I wonder how many are really knowing how to target the Redditors, which are a beast of their own, because they spot immediately if you are
Mhm.
there for promoting yourself. So, have you experienced with this kind of interaction between the brands and the consumers outside the owned properties? So, in other channels like Reddit or Instagrams, but when is not answering to someone which is interacting with you with your social media profile, or for instance on Reddit, on your subreddit, or something like this. What are the common mistakes you see?
Well, believe it or not, 99% of Italian companies simply ignore Reddit because they don't know about its existence, or they don't know how to get the value out of this kind of platform and this kind of communities. What they know for sure is that it's not easy to promote a brand within the Reddit community because, as you say, it's not promotion to the Reddit, and it's easier to be damaged than to get some help in increasing sales when you're on Reddit. So back to the point, 99% of the companies simply are ignoring this kind of community management in this kind of platforms or social network, or they are outsourcing to agencies. But when an agency is managing this kind of product, they don't really own the product. They don't really know the heritage of the brand, the history, the values. So it's easier to spot when an answer is published by an agency instead of the brand because it's
Yeah,
not.
yes. And I think, in fact, what I'm thinking is that actually the stakeholder should not even be a marketer for these kind of things. There should be with the support of a marketer
Mhm.
who knows how to individuate this kind of conversation online, but then owned and managed by the customer care. Because most of the time it's people asking about how can I use this product? And obviously, who better than the customer care is entitled to give a correct answer and
Exactly.
sounding useful and not self-promotional. And this could be also a way to then creating trust, because you were saying before, many times people are not trusting branded content
Mhm.
because it's considered too self-promotional. And regarding to this, what do you think of somehow quite recent trend to put tidbits of informational content about the product inside the product description page? You were saying before, in the product description page, obviously we cannot put the Bible about the product. But what about these classic frequently asked question, FAQs, that in this case, again, the customer care or even the responsible of the store, if they have a store, can regularly, periodically present a report to the mother house?
Well, this is a difficult question because I've worked with several fashion brands, and when you talk about fashion, content in the product page is like taboo. They believe that pictures are the only thing they need, and they have to put only the most important information on the product page, like the way the product is produced, the material, or the way to take care of the product. In my opinion, when you talk about product pages and the content you have to put in the product page, you have two missions. You have a double mission. The first one, you had to let's talk about product that you would like to buy because you are passionate by this kind of product. You product that could be I don't know how to say, the product that you can buy by instinct. So the
Mhm.
content has to let you dream. So let you provide you a motivation why this product is exactly the one you need. This dress is exactly the one you need, this jacket, this pair of shoes. And the second thing is providing the answer to the most relevant question, like, okay, how to get the right size, for instance, shoes, how to get the right fit. How can I be sure that if I order online, I get the exact size? Or how to be sure that I can use this jacket also when raining, when snowing, and so on. So you have to put the most relevant information in the product page and then link to a more detailed page, an FAQ page for more details in order to provide the answers those people need. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you answered it well. You answered it well. So the product page, as it was part of a cluster of content targeting different search intents, let's call it so, about the product. So in order to target the potential customer when it's in the messy middle, it's still in the consideration phase or the exploration phase, or is still up in the funnel or deeper in the funnel. Another thing is that you're presenting in your report is the convergence between online and offline. Not that this is nothing new, but once there was really this sort of distinction of what I buy online is different from what I buy offline. But these two words substantially merge. Classic example I always do is the showrooming. So going into a shop, seeing something that you like, but not convinced about the price. And so you use Google Lens in order to see if that same product can be bought online at a cheaper price. But it can be also vice versa. Seeing something online and seeing, okay, it's because not all e-commerce can provide you the product, or maybe because it's out of stock. So you start to search in local stores. So you start putting near to me in the query in order to understand if there are closer shops that maybe of the same brand that actually have the product. How do you see this conversion, this integration between offline and online in the e-commerce space? And let's talk about something that is not so sexy, but it's so important, like linking to, for instance, something from one side, Google Merchant. Very few talks about the possibility of connecting Google Merchant with your Google business page with a local inventory. So let's try to talk and put the correct highlight to this kind of information.
So to answer your first question, after the pandemics, what I noticed in my observatory is that in the past, people used to search and to buy and just by habits. I prefer to buy online. So I use, for instance, Google and Amazon to find out where to get the same product cheaper, or where to get sooner, or where to get a product with no shipping costs, and so on. Right now, in the past 2-3 years, I see that many Italians, my main focus is on Italians, but I see that working with fashion brands, selling and having shops worldwide, I've seen that right now people are searching and buying by opportunity. So people that were used to buy online or buy only in the shop, right now they buy according to the opportunity. I see one thing that I like online. Okay, I buy it right now online, even if I prefer to buy in a shop, and vice versa. If I'm going shopping with my family and I see the jacket I like, okay, maybe I could use my smartphone in order to ask Google with Google Lens, or ask ChatGPT also to get an executive summary of the reviews regarding this product. Well, I use it, but having the product in front of me, even if online could be 5 or 10% cheaper, I prefer to buy it right now because I can own it right now. So this is something that it's relevant, because what happened and what happens within the companies right now, even in 2025, there are several companies that are treating websites, e-commerce, and shops as two silos. So they don't understand, they don't believe that there is a synergy between the two. And you say local inventory is relevant because if I need this kind of jacket and I know I have a store 2 kilometers away from me, the first thing I do is check if there is a site of this product at that shop. And in 10 minutes, I'll be there. And if I like the product, I'll buy it. So they don't get, at least 80% of those companies, they don't get the opportunity because they believe that, okay, offline has to do its work, online has to do its work. They are competitors. Too many companies believe that e-commerce is a competitor of the store, and it's not exactly the best way to get the omnichannel experience because you say people would like to buy where and when they want to buy, and if there is an opportunity, they would like to be ready. And you as a company, you as a retailer should help them find the store, find where you could get the product, the right size, the color, and or depending on the kind of product you're trying to sell. So
I want to ask you a question, and let's talk about e-commerce and LLMs.
Yeah.
Because it's very fresh the news that ChatGPT has signed the deal with Etsy, and very soon is going to be operative also with Shopify, so that we can buy during the checkout directly from the ChatGPT chat box. How do you think, who is the real target of this movement apart internal stakeholders that maybe start to need to see some revenue from all the money they invested on OpenAI? But who is the one who must fear the most this kind of operation? Amazon or Google?
that's a good question because I wrote a post on LinkedIn talking about that. And the first thing we have to understand is how people are going to use this opportunity, because we have to talk also about shopping experience before answering your question. Because if you think about a person who would like to buy online for the first time, where does it go? He goes to Amazon because he knows, because someone told him, or he has read about that. He knows that Amazon has a stellar customer service. Amazon has the lowest prices. Okay, not always, and a huge inventory. So they have some expectations. When you talk about shopping in ChatGPT or in TikTok or in Instagram, it's a completely different experience. I think that it's a sort of, I don't like to say anomaly, but the real target of ChatGPT using this opportunity is the person who is looking to buy that specific product at that time, and he doesn't need any particular customer experience, any particular brand experience, because, for instance, you talk about a book or not, for instance, a dress or a pair of shoes, because there are other things that enter in the shopping experience. But I've seen what happened with TikTok Shop in other countries. They started selling in Italy, and I have brands that are selling on TikTok that they're not so satisfied with. So right now, it's very difficult to answer to your question, because we have to see if people are really going to buy within the answers of ChatGPT. Because right now, I haven't seen, if you go to the merchant website in order to conclude the transaction, or you still remain on the answer. Because, and the other question is, who gets the data? Because if you visit a website in a world where first-party data are most relevant, are even more relevant day by day, who owns the data? ChatGPT or you? If you get a sale but you don't get the data, you're only get half of the opportunity. So right now,
Yes,
I'm not
also
able to
considering
answer your.
that, no,
I
no,
know.
you give me more, making popping up a more question, because yes, if ChatGPT is offering this opportunity, who is then is through marketplace, not, for instance, they didn't sign the same kind of thing with e-commerce CMS providers, which would eventually oblige OpenAI to create an analytics. In this case, I think it's Etsy and Shopify with their own analytics and the direct firewalls from OpenAI and ChatGPT to give information, analytics information to the clients. And probably this is why we started with this sort of marketplaces, substantially. And somehow in this case, it's quite similar to shopping, but because shopping has Google Analytics behind and so on. But even if Google, a long time ago, started to talk to the instant checkout from shopping, but I don't know if it's operative or not. I don't think so. But it's different because what you see is how Google has much more experience in understanding immediately if someone is searching for buying. Because we see it in how fast Google is pushing Google Shopping and merchant into a SERP, even if you are just starting, because it previews that in 3 steps you are going to ask and searching for a shop to where to buy it. So I think that we must see if ChatGPT is able to understand this kind of search it that with such anticipation. Because if with such anticipation that you start to create a sort of attention towards certain brands presented on shopping and merchant, and then eventually going clicking on merchant popular products or preferred stores, etc., in the merchant Shopify ecosystem. So one last question. It's not just for Italy, but surely you can eventually give us Italian example if you have it. The classic question. We were already fighting with Google because Google was, with the year, started to hide information from metrics. And so we really need to be very good in web analytics in order to understand, and also in combining the data with Search Console and third-party data in order to understand, have a real full analytic picture of what was happening with our website and the traffic and the customer behavior. Now, with LLMs, this is even more dramatic because we know that, but also with AI overview, we are seeing it in AI mode too. These are features that are substantially retaining the people inside their own ecosystem. So people says ChatGPT converts better than Google. Yes, but with show smaller traffic, the conversion usually is higher. Higher intent. Okay. I don't buy it completely, this kind of narrative. But I have a hunch that all this visibility then can bring traffic in other form, like direct traffic, branded traffic, type-in traffic, traffic that is ultimately assigned to, let's say, another channel than the initial one, which can be AI overview or ChatGPT, and maybe is assigned to TikTok because then you found again this brand on TikTok and you reminded from AI overview and from ChatGPT. How can we find a formula for correlating? Because I know Rand Fishkin, I cite him again, is saying attribution marketing is dead. The problem is that our clients and brands still have not understood that attribution marketing is not the same as before. How can we find the balance in order to be ourselves better informed and the client also better informed in order to establish or adjust their own strategies?
Well, that's $1 million question because right now this is it's budget time right now. So every manager is asking how to understand the real value of ChatGPT and Gemini and other LLMs, or what's going on with AI overuse and in the near future, I don't know when in Europe, but with AI mode. Right now, the problem is that we don't have data. So the only way we can measure the impact those tools have on the purchase process, the way they are influencing positively or negatively about the brand, is to ask people. And that's problematic because you have to rely on what people say, on the memory of those people, and you ask them, okay, did you use ChatGPT when buying your last pair of shoes? And what kind of information did you trying to get And that response, was it reliable? Was it useful? Was it convincing you? And at the end of the day, you decided to buy that pair of shoes because ChatGPT convinced you, or it was because, okay, ChatGPT didn't provide you any negative information about that. So back to the point, attribution model, I agree with you, is definitely bad, at least with the tools we have today, because when you don't have access to the kind of information an LLM could provide, the number, for instance, of people using it and how to track people using those tools when shopping for your brand, when shopping for products. And there is no easy answer right now, and I know that not the most exciting answer I could provide, but we are all working on a kind of minimum viable measurement protocol in order to mix the information we have from the analytics. And the problem is that if you compare visits coming from LLMs that are not designed for sending you traffic, many managers believe that because of this little number of visits, LLMs are not interesting to not an interesting channel to manage to at least to monitor.
That's why I was really pointing my attention to finding this kind of correlation between visibility and uplift in traffic, uplift in conversion, as when people says, okay, if we AI overview, we are seeing a loss of traffic, organic traffic, but if we look at the conversion rate, we see that the conversion is at least the same, and in some cases is even increasing, because that is for me the sign that there must be some kind of correlation. The problem is that I still haven't found the formula to demonstrate this kind of correlation. So from one side, I'm glad that I'm not the only one thinking this. I'm optimistic, so I know that people like you and like many others are much better than me in everything analytics and treating data, this kind of data, so that this kind of information is going to be shared and become possible. Okay, almost 1 hour. Yes, wanted to tell me
one more thing.
Yes.
When you say that, well, people are seeing less visits from because they say because of AI overview in Italy, for instance. But the answer, the question I ask those managers is, are you sure that you get less visits because AI overviews, or are because you're, for instance, promoting less? Because I've seen many companies cutting their advertising budgets. So if you don't promote your brand, people are forgetting your brand because you have to be relevant, be present. Otherwise, you'll be forgotten.
Well,
The other,
the fact that AI overview is somehow quitting organic traffic is becoming a stereotyped knowledge because of informational content and informational website that they saw a decrease
when you
in the
talk
traffic.
about publishers, I totally agree. I've been a couple of days ago at a meeting at Google Italy with some publisher talking about the evolution of search because they were treated by those news by Google, so that they were fearing AI overview, they were fearing AI modeling coming to them. But
Yeah.
when you talk about e-commerce, it's not always.
Yes, when it comes to e-commerce, it's a different situation. And let's see when it comes to Google being from inside to find the formula to implement merchant information inside AI mode, especially, and in the, let's say, version 2.0 of AI overview, when it will come, because I think that the AI overview that we are experiencing now is just a live beta test, not the real one that Google will deploy. And especially when Google will find the formula to put the advertisement into AI and educating people that this advertisement must be clicked. Because if it's just view, it's not going to be useful neither for Google. Let's stop here talking about marketing. Let's talk a little bit about you. You were hinting before of this D2C e-commerce about cycling. And I know that cycling is a really big passion of yours. What is, just to conclude this conversation, Do you have some anecdote related to cycling? Why do you like so much cycling? And did the cycling taught you something about yourself, also in your profession, for your profession, and to be the person you are?
Well, I can say that I am a performance marketer because I used to be an SEO, but my company was a performance marketing company because we had to use all the channels in order to improve sales to promote the brand. I am a performance marketer because I was an athlete. And when you're an athlete, you know that to get to results, you have to define all the things you have to do. You have to plan your training, you have to measure your improvements, you have to measure your results, you have to test. So it's a continuous improvement process that uh, trained me also to apply all I've learned being an athlete, working with professional trainers, and that provide me with all the information I needed to improve. So, what kind of KPIs to monitor related to your physical performance? And when I moved to digital, I started applying all those concepts to digital marketing. In 2001, I wrote one of the first Italian books about performance marketing because I tried to apply what I've learned being an athlete on digital advertising, SEO, affiliate marketing, and I have to thank my past mountain biker. Exactly. I had to explain. I was not a road biker. I used to be a mountain biker, being a part of the national team, Italian national team, and so on. So the most important learning I got from being an athlete when I moved to my professional career. And right now, I believe that if you like being an athlete, if you have been an athlete, you have a different motivation when also moving to business, to marketing, because you know all the commitment you have to put in order to get a result.
Right, right, right. Thank you, Marco. It was a
Thank you,
great
Gianluca.
pleasure to have you as my guest here at the research session. And let's see, maybe in the future, if we have found this famous formula about measuring, or if we want to talk maybe with a small panel with other people about the evolution of commerce after a few months of this rollout of the checkout on ChatGPT. And thank you again.
Thank you,
And
Gianluca. Thank you all.
you're welcome. And for you guys, remember to ring on the bell and subscribe to the channel so you will be notified whenever a new episode is going to come out and to help us grow. Thank you and see you very soon.